it is such an honor to have Rebecca Olson from Rebecca Olson Coaching here with us today on the podcast. You are in for a treat. Rebecca is changing lives as a coach. She believes that the world needs women to rise up, and she's helping women do just that. You know, as women who are also mothers, for those that are listening, we know that having kids changes the game, but Rebecca believes you can win both at home and in your career, and she is coaching to that end. Rebecca, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, Carrie. It's super, super glad to be here.
Yeah. So I am truly excited to dive in a little bit more into your mission and your vision and how you arrived there in your life. I know that listeners are going to get a ton of great nuggets today from just that. But as we get rolling, tell us a little bit about your mission, your why.
Yeah. So, I actually walk my clients through a process of talking about mission and purpose. And so mine sounds a little weird and cliche, but I'm going to tell you, and I usually tell my clients, like, you don't have to tell this to anyone. So it could sound as funny and bizarre as you want.
Right.
And so mine, I'm about to share it, and however many people are about to hear it, but here you go.
It's all
Um, my current mission or purpose, as I like to use that word, is that I'm a lighthouse that guides women through the rough waters of life.
Mm.
And I like to pick a metaphor, and so lighthouse is my metaphor because our brains really latch on to pictures and images, and it's a lot easier for us to like wrap our whole brains around what it means.
For sure.
When they're not just words on a page, but it kind of captures an image. So I use the one lighthouse because I definitely feel like a guide, and I haven't just felt like a guide as a coach. Obvious that seems kind of obvious.
Sure.
But I came to that more from a place of just looking at who I have been designed to be, like from birth, who God made me to be, and seeing all of the places that I've showed up as a guide and a lighthouse all through my life. I can point to all of that, and it just so happens that in the last 5 years or so, 6 years, I've made it a profession, but that is definitely who I am and my mission in this world.
I love that. It makes me think of, and it's beautiful that you said a guide, because when you said lighthouse, that was immediately what I thought, and light. And I would definitely describe you as having light as well. So when we think about excellence, we talk about the fact that, hey, that can mean different things to different people. And I know that that resonates with you because, hey, your coaching company is founded on working moms, right? I mean, that's the whole premise of that. When you think about your mission and excellence, even in whether it's in your practice or it's in your day-to-day life, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think this is a really great question. Because I think a lot of people would answer it from an external perspective. And I think to be honest, I kind of think that's backwards.
Yeah.
I really see excellence as your best self meeting your best actions. That's when excellence happens. And so we tend to focus a lot on the actions. That's the external piece of it, the doings of life, doing things in a particular way, meeting a particular standard, something along those lines.
Sure.
And none of that matters if the internal doesn't follow it or meet it, right? And so, or drive it, I guess is even a better way to say it. So the focus for me in excellence is always on the internal stuff, my feelings, my thoughts, my beliefs, all being in alignment with and meeting my best actions. And so I focus a lot. I mean, as a coach, I focus a lot on the internal stuff, right? Because
Sure.
I just believe I believe that your actions follow that. If you believe and you think and you feel as your best self, if you're walking in that level of purpose and strength and confidence, and you're feeling good about you and why you're here in this world and how you're showing up, and all of that feels right, the actions, of course, are going to follow that. That's going to be a natural progression. And so as those things come together, I think that's where excellence happens.
I often talk about, if you get your mind right, the rest will follow suit, right? I mean, it's the mindset thing. But I think that, as you pointed out, that really goes deeper too. It can be your mind, your body, your soul. I mean, it's all of that. And you're right, when you get those things right and you invest in them, then the other stuff follows naturally. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
In terms of measuring how you're doing with your mission, I know this looks different to different people too. And I'm sure you could say, hey, well, it's the number of women I'm serving in my coaching program, but I'm willing to bet there's probably a little bit more to that with you. How do you measure how you're doing on your mission?
Yeah, this is an interesting question because, my purpose as I stated it, or my mission as I stated it, being a lighthouse that guides women through rough waters, that has nothing to do with coaching. That doesn't talk about my business at all. It's my purpose in life. It's how I'm showing up. I'm choosing to manifest it in a coaching business in my career, just as I'm choosing to manifest that in friendship and in community and as a mom and with my kids. And in my purpose, my mission is everywhere for me. And I believe that's really, really important to see, because so often we think of mission or purpose or vision, whatever you want to call it, as something like there's a right and a wrong to it. You need to go out there and
Yeah.
find it somewhere. I need to figure out what my purpose is, and I need to get into a job, a career that must be it. I need to find my purpose in my career. Usually those two things for a lot of people are kind of synonymous. And so we have to separate it out and say, I just exist and I have purpose. I have
Right.
to believe that I exist and I have purpose. And here's the words I've put behind my existence and why I think how I think I've been uniquely wired. And so I live this out all the time. This is not,
Well, you're living it out right now, right?
I'm living it out right now. Exactly, for sure. And so I spend some time, I do spend some time every once in a while probably thinking about this, not so much as evaluating it in a statistical way or in a data driven way, but it's that I always think that we can be living into our purpose in a deeper, more impactful way. I believe I live it just as my existence, but of course, if I put a little bit of thought behind it or a little bit of intentionality, then I can live it even more, right? And so there is, I think, a lot of times that I think comes up when life isn't feeling like it's going very smoothly, and I have to take a step back and go, what's going on here? And how am I showing up right now? Am I stepping into the person I'm supposed to be, or are my commitments totally out of alignment with my purpose right now? And where do I need to make some adjustments?
So it sounds to me like part of what you might do, whether it's intentionally scheduled, if you will, or a practice or not, is evaluation, that you do step back and evaluate where it is you are, and particularly in those times where you're not feeling so well about how things are going, right?
Right.
Because that may be just a good kind of indication that something's off.
Right. Yeah, I think, there's this kind of mentality that I think a lot of people live by, in the sense that life just kind of happens to them on some level, and that there isn't a lot of control over it. And I don't think that's a helpful way to approach life. I think it's more helpful for me to feel like that I'm in a driver's seat of some kind, or that God gives me permission to be in a driver's seat
Right.
of some kind, and that I have a lot of control over my choices. And so with that mindset, whenever something is going right or not going right, I stepping back and evaluating why and what do I want to do about it. And that's one of the greatest tools.
I think that that's a huge thing for those who are listening to hear, though, because I think the trap that many fall into is things aren't going well, and we dive into the rabbit hole of negativity and blame and whatever, which is, I think, natural, unless somebody is around to say, and or we've been taught to evaluate, to step back and do that assessment. I think it's one of the beautiful gifts of coaching is that coaches allow us to see those blind spots and to ask good questions and say, hey, how you doing with this, right?
Right.
Or let's unpack this further.
Curiosity, not criticism.
Right.
It's our brain naturally kind of goes into this criticism mode, and I think it's more of a it's more, I was going to say, like a mindset or a tool, but it's more of a different, it's an approach that we have to learn. I think that's what I'm talking about. It's a learned way of approaching life to step back and to live in curiosity rather than criticism. And that's a key place to be if you ever want to make change, or if you ever want to feel like you are in control or in the driver's seat. You have to be in a place of curiosity with yourself, internally about what's going on. And so that's
Amen to that.
yeah.
I am really curious about the answer to this one. So, do you have a favorite quote or affirmation that drives you on a daily basis? It's like your go-to thing.
Totally. I totally do. It's I'm exactly where I should be.
Mm.
Big pregnated pause, just so you hear that. I'm exactly where I should be. And if you say that to yourself every day and you truly believe I'm exactly where I should be, I'm having a terrible day today and I'm exactly where I should be. I'm really struggling to figure out something, but I'm exactly where I should be. I'm like a mess at work, but I'm having the greatest time with my kids. I'm exactly where I should be. If you truly believe that in every moment, you are exactly where you should be, and you should not be anywhere else. You shouldn't have any more money. You shouldn't be in a different job. You shouldn't be reacting in a different way. You're exactly where you should be in life's process.
Yeah.
That is very, very powerful. And it always centers me, because I say it every day, no matter if I'm having a great day or I'm having a terrible day, but
Right.
Because I just believe it now at this point, I just really believe it, but it always brings me back into perspective and kind of go, oh, even though this isn't going so well right now, and I've got some things to learn, like I'm supposed to be learning these things. Like that's the way this was meant to be, is God has made this happen in this way for a very specific reason. I'm exactly where I should be figuring this out. It feels so relieving to know that.
I was talking to a friend just this morning who was lamenting a little about wishing that she wouldn't have had to go through or she would have arrived more rapidly at the place that she was today. And there were some painful things along the way, right? And I said, the thing about that for me is, hey, the journey is just as important as the destination is. We get to this destination. If we just got there and there was no pain and no turbulence and no bumps or bruises along the way, would we really appreciate the destination as much, right? It stinks that we have to go through tough things and have hard days, but I absolutely subscribe to that belief that we're learning lessons that are going to be useful down the way, right? Every day.
For sure. And that, it reminds me of kind of another one that I say a lot to myself, which is that your greatest potential is always ahead of you. If you really believed that your greatest potential was always ahead of you, no matter where you have been, no matter what you have done, no matter how old you are, if your greatest potential is always ahead of you and you believe that, what would you do because of that?
Well, always learning, always growing, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. When you think about that and you're you're telling yourself every day, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be and my greatest potential is ahead. Do you have practices in your day to day where you're like, this is a non-negotiable for me that I make sure I incorporate into my day or week that helps you toward keeping with those mindsets?
Mhm. Yeah, there is. This is this is an interesting question because it's evolved, I think, a little bit over time. But generally speaking, I would say the practice is just a daily quiet time. That in and of itself is it. Now, what I do in that quiet time has evolved and changes constantly based upon where I'm at right now. And so sometimes that is a deep dive into scripture of some kind. Sometimes that's me writing out my beliefs about myself because I'm struggling with who I am right now. And so I just decide for the next week, I'm just going to write these things out every single day. Sometimes it is more focused on goals, and I'll take time to write out goals.
Sure.
Sometimes it's just a prayer list. Sometimes, I mean, it's completely evolves, which has been hard for me because I'm kind of a type A driven personality, and so I think there's a right way to be spending my time, kind of always.
Right.
I
I resemble that remark. Right.
And so I've had to really learn, and I still struggle with sometimes. It's like, oh, like all I just need to do is provide space. Like if I know that if I provide space, something will come out, and I get to decide. There's no right or wrong. What am I feeling like today? I do find it helpful if I commit to something for at least a week or like a month. If I commit to a rhythm, so I don't sit down and go, what should I do
What do I
today?
do? Am I going to
What do
write
I do?
today or think today or what's on the list, right?
That's really where I have learned how I've had to just curb that and just make a decision and say, this is where I feel my heart and where God wants me to be today.
Yeah. I absolutely love that. I was just listening yesterday to an amazing coach who's been part of my life for a couple of decades now. And I was listening to him speak at one of our company events. And he talked about in the morning, your morning routine and just making sure that routine and it's fun that I didn't hear you say, I make sure that I spend time watching the news or diving into social media or getting on my electronics. What you said was, I make sure that I have quiet time. And he was saying, get outside, get out in nature, get somewhere quiet, just spend some time in your morning in that way. And I subscribe to that. For me, it's being outside watering my garden, right? It can just be sitting there watering flowers for 10 minutes or going for a run, where I think we get out of, if we get up and we get into just the business of doing life or work, it really gets in the way of clear thinking.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, that's definitely my place of getting my head in the right spot for my day. And I do tend to do it in the morning because I'm a morning person and not a night person. But it kind of is, you know,
Yeah.
wherever you want to do it. And I have learned, it's been a practice for over a year now for me at least, is that I don't plug my phone in next to the bedside. It's in another room. And that feels
Huge.
like a danger for me. It's not my alarm. The last thing I see is my husband.
Right.
My
Not your
husband.
social media feed. Yeah, no, I get it.
First thing I look at is not the emails that came in or the news or whatever. It's like sipping a glass of water and doing a little stretch, and usually my son who woke me up. So
Right. No, that's beautiful. When we think about, missions, oftentimes people, and I know you work with people on working through purpose and where they're at and where they're going. So I'm sure you've got a moment for yourself too. Sometimes there are these like blinding flash of the obvious moments where it's like, this changed everything for me. And other times it's just a journey that evolves over time, and sometimes it's a combination of both. But is there a particular moment in your life where the direction changed and my mission definitely changed from this to this, or what does that look like for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say that a big one of the biggest shifts that happened was me turning to coaching and deciding to become a coach. And that came after probably a year or so of, soul searching and prayer and book reading and trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do with my life and, and being very dissatisfied with where I was at in my career and being pregnant with my first, who's now 6, and trying to just saying I don't want to do this. I don't want to return from maternity to this job, but I don't know what the heck I want to do with my life. And um, kind of feeling that sense of lostness that comes for a lot of women around that time of their life, the mother, when they start becoming moms. That really hit for me too. And so it really was, it's kind of embedded in my mission a little bit, but it was a time that I found some of that language around just really seeing this is who God designed me to be at the core. Like, I'm a
Right.
people person at the core. I never have really cared about my work, and I care a lot more about who I'm working with and how I can support them and what's going on in their life. And I've been a natural mentor to people. People ask me in informal and formal ways to mentor them all through my life. They've done that. I'm always placed in those kinds of positions. And so I literally had this moment, and as I recognized that this is who I am this guide, and I care so much more about your soul and what's going on the inside than I care about what you're doing, and I'm kind of the awkward person that asks, I haven't seen you in like months, but how's your marriage right now? And like,
Right.
how are you doing right now? And like, I ask really like deep questions to people I don't see very often. And it's just who I am. And so seeing that and kind of embracing that and kind of going, okay, how could I make this my career? What can I do to make this my life if this is who I don't think I have to. I don't think that because they're not synonymous, like I can still live into that
Right.
purpose the way I am today. But if I wanted to make this my career, what could I do? And so that's when I found life coaching. And I was my very first day in class, which was a virtual class, that I remember calling my husband and going, I was like made for this. Like,
Mm.
30 of 30 of me in this class right now. Like, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And it was a beautiful moment where my actions matched what I knew my best self to be, and I allowed space for that. So that really was a turning point for me, for sure, in that discovery and doing that self-discovery work to get there.
What I think is super important for listeners to hear that I just got from you was to listen to yourself and pay attention to those feelings, right? Because I think we don't. I think we blow by them in the busyness of life and or taking care of all of the things that we juggle. We like push down those feelings of, oh, I really felt a sense of belonging or a sense of purpose, or like this is what I'm supposed to do, and listening to that. I mean, I think about the Discovering W.I.S.E podcast and writing this book and the fact that that was on the table 8 years ago, right? If I had listened, right, and not just went, okay, but no, I really have this to do, right? So
Yeah.
being focused on, although back to what you said, right? We're exactly where we are,
We're
where we're
exactly where we're supposed to be.
right. So
Yeah, I think there's something very we we feel on some level as humans we should just get it.
mm,
Like, we don't need to take time to do some of this work, because we should just intuitively understand what our purpose is in life and why we exist and what we should be doing and what's not going well and what is going well. Like, we just we have passing by questions like, should I really be doing this, or I wonder why I'm not feeling X, Y, or Z, but we don't stop and ever answer our own questions.
right.
we we lean
Just
on
keep
other
going.
people to answer it, or we think that somehow just by magically posing a quasi question into, it's God or the universe,
Right.
that it's going to be answered. No, these things like take intentional time to figure out.
Well, and effort, right, that comes behind that time. It's investing in figuring it out and really exploring it. Yeah.
For sure. For sure.
Rebecca, who influenced you along the way in this journey, or who continues to?
Gosh, that's a very interesting question. I I've probably been more influenced by my personal mentors in my life than anyone else. I'm grateful to have had people that invested in me at a young age, high school age and on, that mentored me. And, God bless those people that do that because they are so needed. Um, yeah, so I can think of a couple of different mentors that I had, both in kind of church life and then outside of that, kind of in college, and teachers and things like that that were particularly noteworthy. I mean, do you want me to say their names and like talk about
Yeah,
them?
I don't, if you wanted to, you most certainly can. But I think what I love about what you're saying is that, and I don't, know teachers and ministry leaders by no stretch of any means do I mean that they are average in any way. They do incredible things, but average ordinary people in our lives are making big long-term impacts every day. So whoever you are out there that's listening to this and whatever it is that you do on a daily basis, I mean, that's just proof that those people that are speaking truth and life into you and whatever we do for others, right, it makes a difference.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And I really don't believe that pastors are supposed to have that role solely for us in our lives. We are meant to pastor each other. That is where
Mm-hmm.
the Great Commission really actually comes from, is as we learn to not look to the higher ups, but look
Right.
to community to be that to be
Body.
that level of support and provide that level of pastoral care to us. If we allow that, that's where I think it can multiply, way faster than it has, particularly over the last century or so. And I was grateful to be a part of a church once that really had that message honed in on them. And we
Mm-hmm.
would go through phases of like, it's time to re-up with a mentor, somebody in this community. Go find, who are you
Right.
gravitating towards these days? Go ask them to mentor you.
Every single, right.
Offer.
Every
It's
single person listening can be that, right? Can be that to somebody else. We all have something unique to offer to another human
yeah.
being.
That's just a belief. It's just a belief that everybody has something to offer me.
Yeah.
And it's my job to believe that, one, and then open my ears to listen to it. Like, if we all truly believe that, like, I mean, I really do think that would be a paradigm shift, not just in the church, but in.
Well, you are in the business of changing the world, Rebecca. So that's part of that, right? That is part of that. I'm curious, what's the biggest lesson or obstacle that you've learned along the way of living out this why?
I think it was, I think there, I think it kind of dovetails back to something I just said a few minutes ago, which is it's this recognition that I was already living into the purpose God created me to be. I was born with it and have lived it out my whole life. It wasn't something I needed to go find, that I needed to go, that I was either in it or I wasn't, that kind of idea in the Christian world of like, I'm either in his will or I'm not in his will. If it's just his
Right.
will, what is his will? It's this big question that we have that's all related to purpose and what you should be doing, and it's not, you're already not, it's none of that.
Right?
You're already living it. If you looked inside of you to define, if you need language around it, which I think there's a lot of it
Benefit. Sure.
needs to be put on finding language around it. I think that helps our brain really wrap around it, to believe in it, to prioritize it, to get intentional. I mean, if you don't know what it is, if you don't define it, then you're going to have a hard time. But it's not way out here in the nebulous out that you got to go find. It's inside of you. And I think that was a big big paradigm shift for me personally. And it's a lot of women that I work with for sure.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of human beings in general, right? Again, back to, I mean, I think you said it earlier in our time together, it's the looking externally versus internally, right?
Yeah.
For the answers.
Yeah.
Is there anything that I haven't asked you, or words of encouragement that you just, hey, I have to let the women listening hear this?
Oh man, I would say yes. I mean, I could probably give you hours of things to talk about. But the one that I always come back to in life, it's just one of those core beliefs that I've come to know about myself, and I think I just project it in the way that I live my life, and of course in the work that I do, is just the belief that you don't have to settle in life. There isn't you whatever you want, you can have it, literally. And we spend a lot of our lives playing it small and making decisions to not go after big things for usually fear, out of lots of different kinds of fears that of course are very human for us to experience, but that you can have it all, you can have it all kind of life that literally is your choice. And it's not as if some people are wired for it and others aren't, or some people are lucky and some people aren't. It's really just about tapping into your greatest potential, knowing who you are, knowing what your potential is, and then choosing to live it out, relentlessly every single day.
Amen. Rebecca, I so appreciate the time that you've invested in all of us today in sharing from your heart. How can we help you with your current mission?
Yeah, so I specifically work with, working moms that are trying to have amazing careers and not kind of feel held back by motherhood. And I'm still taking clients and working with them one-on-one. And I would love to continue to live out that mission in that way. And so it's a gift that I feel called to and excited about, and just wanting to instill one person at a time that you can be an amazing mom, that your career actually fuels you to be an amazing mom, and vice versa, that your company gets a way better person and you're more valuable to them. Gosh, what a paradigm shift. You're more valuable to your company because you're a mom. Like, I truly believe that. And so if that's like an intersection that someone needs some help in, that's where I'm here for.
Absolutely love it. And we'll make sure that they have the links to your social profiles and to connect with you in the podcast release. Rebecca, thank you so much for being with us today.
Awesome. I'm so glad to be here. Thanks, Carrie.